Сейчас Запад закатил истерику из-за проходящих референдумов. Но проживающие там люди, по сути, лишь реагируют на то, что им в одном из своих интервью в августе прошлого года рекомендовал глава киевского режима Зеленский. Тогда он посоветовал всем, кто чувствует себя русскими, ради блага своих детей и внуков, уходить в Россию. Вот жители упомянутых регионов так сейчас и поступают, забирая с собой при этом свои земли, на которых столетиями жили их предки.
This is my first video update for this Sunday here in Nicosia, Cyprus. It's a very quiet Sunday for the most part. Most people in Nicosia on the weekends, especially Sunday, they drive to the beach. And I was going to go to Larnaca and do some videos from the beach area in Larnaca, but as I was driving to Larnaca, my back tire completely blew out, and so I had to fix it up. And with the spare tire, I just returned back to Nicosia. So let's do some videos on this day from Nicosia, and I promise I will get to some more beach areas very, very soon. Let's see. You saw the opening video segment. That was Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov addressing the UN General Assembly. This was the big speech that everyone was waiting for. And the best segment of that speech, I mean, check it out on the internet. It was a fantastic speech. No wonder the United States, the collective West, did not want to give him a visa because they were afraid of what he was going to say. And boy, did he really say a lot. I mean, he was just dropping facts, a lot of facts about what's going on in the world today, and also about the changes that we're going to go through. A move from the neoliberal, globalist, unipolar world to a multipolar, fair world order was basically the theme of Lavrov's speech. And the best line was what you heard. I think one of the best lines was what you heard in the opening video segment, which was Lavrov saying, this is actually what he said at the Security Council as well, but in this speech, he also made the point that Zelensky, during a television interview in August of 2021, and I'll link that video interview down below. It comes from Inesa's Telegram channel. It has translation subtitles as well. But in that interview, it's about like a 2-minute segment. And this is what Lavrov was referencing in the opening video intro. In that interview on Ukrainian TV, Zelensky made the point that anyone in Ukraine that speaks Russian or feels a connection to Russia or feels like their culture, their ethnicity, their history is Russian, Zelensky pretty much says, and I'm paraphrasing it, he says, get out of Ukraine, leave, you're not welcome here. And Lavrov, he makes the point saying, well, what's happening with regards to the referendums, is that the people are just taking Zelensky's advice and they're leaving Ukraine, but they're taking their land with them. And I thought that was a very sharp point that Lavrov made. And it just goes to show that the Russian ministry of the Russian foreign ministry and the Kremlin as a whole, they really have their eye on what all the media channels are saying, and they've got everything very well documented as to what Ukraine media is saying, the interviews that are taking place, what the collective West media is saying. I mean, they understand what the collective West and what Ukraine is saying about Russia before the special military operation, during the special military operation. They really have everything archived and documented. And in this instance, you have Lavrov referencing a TV interview from August 2021. Anyway, I will put links to the interview down below, and let's Let's stick with Ukraine while we're on the subject of Ukraine. And we have the referendums. We have more results from the second day of the referendums. The turnout is as such: Kherson 31.79%, Zaporozhye 35.54%, Donetsk 55.50%, and Lugansk 45.86%. I saw some exit polls, and I believe the exit polls from either Donetsk or Lugansk, but they were showing something like 93% of those who have voted in favor of unification with Russia. And so here's how things are going to go for the week that's coming. September 27th, you're going to have the results. They're going to be summed up. On the 28th, you're going to have the State Duma. They're going to vote for the inclusion of the new regions in Russia. On the 29th, the Federation Council is going to vote, September 29th. And on September 30th, President Putin will deliver a message to the Federal Assembly announcing the reunification of the new 4 regions with Russia if the vote continues as we all believe it will continue. So that is pretty much what is going to happen in the week ahead. And then October 1st, well, those territories are now part of the Russian Federation, and let's see. Your move, NATO, Collective West, Zelensky regime. Your move. So in Ukraine last night at 5:30 in the morning, the Ukraine military, they decided to attack a hotel in Kherson. And this was a hotel where many journalists were staying, including RT journalists. And 2 people were killed. According to various reports, local politician Alexei Zuravko, who was actually a deputy of the Ukrainian Rada, he was killed in this attack, as well as another person. And there was an RT journalist on the scene who was staying at the hotel that evening, early morning, and he filmed one of his colleagues, I believe a cameraman, who was trapped underneath the rubble. So the Ukraine military is now attacking hotels where journalists are staying. This was civilian infrastructure. There was no military activity in and around that hotel, from what I understand. This was an attack on a hotel with journalists and various politicians as well. I've seen the videos that RT has put out because one of their journalists were there, and it was pretty troubling stuff. But this is how the Collective West treats journalists, I guess. You know, right? I mean, you always hear about how Russia treats journalists. Well, this is how the Collective West goes after journalists. Let's see here if I have any more info as to what happened. Murad Gazdiev was one of the RT journalists, RT military envoy. Gazdiev, he said, as you can see, there is not much left of the room. I was sleeping in this place. He was actually filming everything, and he has everything on video. Let's see, our cameraman, Mikhail, was crushed by concrete slabs, but miraculously, he survived and was almost unharmed. In addition, the explosions damaged vehicles around the hotel, including SUVs. All right, so Arestovich, Zelensky's BFF, kind of like the Baghdad Bob of the Zelensky regime. He's like the guy that gets out on TV and just talks all kinds of nonsense. He's also like an actor, producer. And he came out on television the other day. He gives these television interviews to this one guy that I guess they're like best buddies, and they do like this weekly or daily interview breakdown where Arestovich just kind of talks talks smack. And from what I understand, the journalist, I forgot his name, but the journalist who's running the show, he was actually a journalist based out of Moscow, and then he kind of defected to Kiev. And now him and Arestovich, they run kind of this program together where they just dish out all kinds of nonsense and propaganda, in my opinion. But Arestovich said that 5.5 million Ukrainians could be mobilized at any moment. He said, quote, "We are, after all, a 40 million strong camp. We will draft 1 million, if anything, and the West will also help. If we fall short, we will mobilize again." Well, if it was only that simple, if mobilization was only about, we have this many people, so let's mobilize. We have 40 million people, so let's mobilize another 5 or 10 million. It doesn't quite work like that, but it does lend credence to the phrase "till the last Ukrainian," doesn't it? That we always hear everyone saying they're going to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. I guess this is Arestovich's way of saying, yeah, we're going to give it a shot. But it's not so simple as just, this is our population, so these are all the people that we're just going to throw to the front lines. Anyway, that was Arestovich giving his TV interview that he does every week or every day or whatever. The Iranian drones, they hit a lot of targets in Odessa and Dnipropetrovsk the other day. And the Iranian drones are really wreaking havoc on the Ukraine military. I mean, they are super, super effective. And they hit military targets in Odessa yesterday. And very successful, those Iranian drones. Very, very successful. And Zelensky, because of the success of the Iranian drones, which do appear to be a game changer, he expelled the Iranian ambassador in Kiev, and Iran has said that they are going to reply to this expulsion. They said they're going to issue an appropriate response to Ukraine's expulsion of the Iranian ambassador. Iran regrets Ukraine's decision to expel the country's envoy and will make an appropriate response, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Nazar Kanani said on Saturday. Kiev has accused Tehran of supplying attack drones to Russia, calling the alleged deliveries an unfriendly act that deals a serious blow to Ukraine-Iran relations. Tehran has remained neutral in the conflict between Moscow and Kiev, Kanani stated, adding that it hopes for a peaceful settlement of the hostilities. Iran said Kiev's decision was made under the influence of propaganda from foreign media and unconfirmed reports. Yeah, I agree with that statement from the Iranian Foreign Ministry. Iran has remained neutral, as has the European Union, as has the United States. Yeah. What has the U.S. Been saying? What has the EU been saying? NATO? We don't want war with Russia. We're not at war with Russia. We're just helping out Kiev. I mean, I guess Iran is kind of saying the same thing. We're neutral. We're just helping out Russia with these weapons, but we're neutral. So, I mean, what's good for one side is good for the other side, is what Iran is saying with this statement. If you read into it, I mean, that's kind of what they're saying. As I said in my video yesterday, the effectiveness of these drones, I am 1,000% certain that many countries in the world are going to be calling up Iran, wanting to do business with regards to this drone technology that the Iranians have, that they possess. Since we're on the subject of Iran, I want to talk just a little bit about the tragic, the unfortunate death of Mahsa Amini. And this has caused a lot of protests in Iran. And today we're actually having counter-protests, and I believe in Tehran today, either today or tomorrow. Yesterday there were protests in many cities across Iran, counter-protests to the protests of her death, and the protests in and around her death that were against the government, against the Iranian government. They turned very violent. A lot of monuments were destroyed and businesses were vandalized and stuff like that. And so this weekend, you had a lot of protests in and around many cities in Iran, calling for the violent protests to end, and they were condemning the destruction of religious monuments and historical monuments and stuff like that. But in Tehran, you're going to have a very, very big rally against violent protests. So that's going to be the rally. It's going to be against violent protests. But I just want to say that the Iranian authorities, they did release CCTV footage, and I've seen that footage. If it is to be believed that that is the footage from the police station, I have no way of confirming it, but I have no reason to doubt that that isn't the footage from the police station. All I can say is from that video, and I'll put a link down below so you can see the actual CCTV footage. From the videos that I saw, when she was taken into custody and she was taken into the police station, there's not a police officer within 50 feet of her. And then she collapses. And she was 22 years old, and it's just a tragic death. But from what, I guess the preliminary results from what I'm hearing is that she died of a heart attack. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think I read somewhere that it was a heart attack that she suffered from. But there is an investigation with regards to her death. But 22 years old and died of a heart attack. And this, once again, the CCTV footage that I saw, if it is to be believed that that is the CCTV footage of the incident at the police station, and I'll say it again, I have no reason to doubt that that isn't the CCTV footage. I don't understand why that isn't Amini in the police station. There's no one around her. I mean, she just collapses, in the middle of the waiting area. I don't know. 22 years old, heart attack. My mind goes somewhere else. But anyway, let's see here. Let me read you some more information as to what's going on here. Mahsa Amini is a name that has hit the headlines over the past days for her death at a hospital, days after her detention by the Iranian police over her non-compliance with Islamic dress code. And this is from Iranian news agencies that I'm giving you this information, so keep that in mind. While demonstrations have been held across the country demanding clarification regarding her death, there have been violent protests and riots leading to attacks on police and acts of vandalism against public property. Iranian officials say the death of Mahsa Amini is being exploited by organized groups to instigate chaos and wreak havoc across the country. On Friday, upon returning from New York, Iran's president, Ebrahim Raisi, said people will definitely be heard if they have a right word to say. He, however, noted that jeopardizing public security will not be tolerated. 22-year-old Mahsa was an Iranian Kurd from the city of Sakes in Kurdistan province. On September 13th, she was on a trip to Tehran with her family when she was arrested by police. CCTV footage released by the police showed that she passed out at a police station due to what was later revealed to be a heart attack. 3 days later, she died at the hospital. So that's from Iranian English news outlets, which are explaining what happened. I will put a link down to the CCTV footage, and you can make your own judgment, your own call as to what happened. I've been monitoring Collective West media and even the media in Greece and Cyprus, and they've had various Iranians who have been living here in Cyprus and in Greece for many, many years, many decades it seems, and they're calling for a type of uprising against the Iranian government as they're being interviewed. Absolutely perfect English, and just young individuals calling for an uprising against the Iranian government because of the death of Amini. But as I saw the interviews, many red flags kind of went off in my head. But take a look at the video and the CCTV footage, and you can decide if this was indeed a young girl passing out, or if this was some sort of sabotage. I mean, it seems to me that it's pretty crystal clear, but you decide. So I will leave it there with regards to this story. And what else do we have to talk about? Let's do another story, another couple of stories. Putin, by the way, has signed a decree exempting university students from mobilization. And I believe this decree is about students who are in state universities, who are enrolled in accredited vocational or higher education institutions. They're going to be exempt from mobilization. So that kind of squashes the whole, I'm a university student and I don't want to go fight in Ukraine. I guess that kind of, rules that out. That puts that to bed at this moment forward. I want to talk about, before I get to my clown world, I want to talk about the mobilization a bit and the EU's stance on various Russians who want to leave the country because they're afraid of mobilization. We're getting kind of two different narratives. We're getting most of the EU leaders, most of the EU kleptocrats, they're saying that the EU should welcome these Russians who are fleeing Russia in order to avoid fighting in Ukraine. But we do have one EU official, a Latvian official, who is saying, no, we shouldn't welcome the Russians into Europe. We should keep them in Moscow and let those people who are against Putin stay in Moscow and protest against the conflict. Actually, Latvia and Finland seem to be taking a stance of no Schengens, no Russians can come in here. Let them stay in Russia and let them protest the war. Why should we give them safe haven in the EU, if you can consider the European Union safe haven? Anyway, let me read you some different opinions with regards to the mobilization and those Russians who are looking to flee from the mobilization, as if they're even at risk. I don't believe they're at risk. But anyway, the European Union should welcome Russians who are fleeing the country because of their political openness, EU Council President Charles Michel said on Friday. In an interview with Politico, Michel explained that the bloc should show openness to those who don't want to be instrumentalized by the Kremlin. Instrumentalized? Ugh. That doesn't sound pleasant. I don't want to be instrumentalized by anybody. That sounds painful. Is being instrumentalized by the Kremlin, is that different than being instrumentalized by Bidenopolis or the Biden White House? What's being instrumentalized by Vander Crazy like? Instrumentalized. Doesn't sound good. In principle, I think that the European Union should host those who are in danger because of their political opinions. If in Russia, people are in danger because of their political opinions, because they do not follow this crazy Kremlin decision to launch this war in Ukraine, we must take this into consideration, Michel said. He added that in the current circumstances, EU members should act swiftly. I agree on the idea that we should very quickly cooperate and coordinate because this is a new fact, this partial mobilization, Michel explained. Now, on Wednesday, the day when Putin made his bombshell announcement on partial mobilization, Latvian Foreign Minister Edgars Rinkēvičs said that his country would not issue humanitarian or other types of visas to those Russian nationals who are trying to escape mobilization. The next day, he explained his stance by claiming that many of these Russians were fine with killing Ukrainians. Therefore, Rinkēvičs argued they are considerable security risks in admitting them. Meanwhile, Germany's Justice Minister, Marco Buschmann, made it clear that anyone who hates Putin's path and loves liberal democracy is warmly welcomed in Germany. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó said on Friday that his country would also continue issuing Schengen visas to Russians. Actually, Szijjártó said that Hungary remains neutral. He actually met with Putin. They had a good conversation, from what I understand, and Hungary is going to continue to issue Schengen visas and welcome all Russian tourists, all Russian visitors. For the war, against the war, this is not any of Hungary's business. And I'll get to the meetings in the UN. Actually, I'll circle back, as Saki says, to those meetings, because I have something to say about that as well. But the Latvian foreign minister, yeah, the Latvian the Latvian foreign minister, he's saying Russians stay in Russia, even if you don't want to fight and you want to come to Latvia to flee the mobilization, stay in Moscow, because you're a security danger to Latvia. Oh boy. I wonder how many Russians are actually actively trying to flee the country. What is the number? Is it in the hundreds? Is it in the thousands? Is it in the tens of thousands? My hunch, my instinct is telling me we're talking about a number of in the hundreds, if that. That's what my instinct is telling me. That's what my gut is telling me. I don't know. I don't think it's very much. I think the EU is going to be welcoming maybe 50, 60 Russians who want to flee the Russian Federation and avoid partial mobilization. Once again, people that probably aren't even at risk of being mobilized, but they're watching too much CNN. Let's discuss. Let's go back to the UN, because I have a little bit of a story here in Cyprus with regards to the UN meetings. So, Hungary had a great meeting with Lavrov. Everyone was lining up and wanting to meet with Lavrov, wanting to shake his hand, wanting to talk with him. I mean, no doubt he was the star of the show. He gave an amazing press conference after his speech at the UN General Assembly. He answered a lot of questions, and he was very sharp during his press conference. Definitely look it up and check it out. It was good. It was good. But Cyprus, the president of Cyprus, he was at the UN. He was in New York, and the Cypriot government, they arranged a meeting with Lavrov. I mean, they arranged a meeting with Russia. They wanted to sit down with Lavrov and talk, and rightly so. That's a great move, because Russia is very connected to Cyprus. There's a lot of Russians living here. There's a lot of Russian business. There's a lot of history and culture, and for the most part, a very friendly relationship between the Cypriot people and the Russian people, and so Anastasiadis, the Cyprus president, and his team, they scheduled a meeting with Lavrov. And Lavrov mentioned this. Why am I saying this? Because Lavrov mentioned this twice during his Q&A session at the UN. He mentioned this twice. And what happened is that 1 hour before the scheduled meeting, the Cyprus government called it off. They had to cancel the meeting with Lavrov. And the reasons they gave, this is incredible. They said that they can't have a meeting with Lavrov because the European Union forbids it.
What Ms. von der Leyen said about the elections in Italy, that was just amazing, because I don't remember when anyone has come to this kind of threats from the European Union leaders. And the European Union is turning into authoritarian, rigid, dictatorship kind of entity, union. It's not a secret to anyone, I guess, that every year here on the sidelines of the General Assembly, we have a lot of bilateral meetings. And this year, like last year, we planned a meeting with the president of Cyprus, Mr. Anastasiadis. We put it on schedule. The schedule was published, both our schedule and Cyprus's schedule. 1 hour before we were supposed to meet, the protocol representatives of Cyprus told our protocol that the European Union is not allowing him to be at this meeting. That's literal. I don't think it's a secret anymore, because the office of Mr. Anastasiades in Nicosia made a statement that same day that the meeting was cancelled because they have to follow certain regulations of the European Union. 3 more countries, 2 countries from the European Union and 1 NATO country, wanted to have meetings with me. They wanted these meetings to be not public, not to inform anyone, because I told them that whatever you want, we are ready to accept any format that is convenient for our partners. And after getting this reaction, they just disappeared from the leaders. We have not heard from them anymore. So that's what happened.
Oh boy, so embarrassing. And Lavrov mentioned this. This is the liberal democracy of Europe, right? Ursula van der Crazy, we have tools, right? Right, Italy? You're voting today, remember that. Ursula is telling you we have tools if you vote the wrong way, but Cyprus can't even have a meeting. They can't even sit down with the foreign minister of a great power. You know, we're a country of what? 800,000 people? We're like a tiny, tiny little island. I mean, you get a meeting with the Russian foreign minister, you go. I mean, you go to that meeting. The same holds true for the US and China and India. You get a meeting with these big, powerful countries. If you have an hour of their time to sit down with them on the sidelines in New York, you show up. Absolutely. But the European Union, they said no. They said, Cyprus, you can't meet with Russia. Mommy and daddy, they say no. But mommy and daddy, I want to go out and play. Mommy and daddy say no, right? That is what's going on here. So embarrassing. So freaking embarrassing. Yeah, and they're going to talk to, and the EU is going to lecture us about liberal democracies and sovereignty and human rights and all of these things, right? They don't even let what is supposed to be a sovereign country, they don't even let that country hold meetings. Unbelievable. Hold diplomatic meetings. Freaking unbelievable. Anyway, I thought I would relay that bit of information, that bit of news from the island. So let's do a clown world. And this clown world, let's see here. This clown world, if Trudeau is Klaus Schwab's favorite son, then New Zealand's Jacinda Ardern, she is Klaus Schwab's favorite daughter. And she was at the UN. And wow, what a speech. If Lavrov gave an amazing speech, well, Ardern, she gave a dystopian 1984 clown world speech. And let's go through some of the things that Jacinda, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, said. Let's see here. Ardern's authoritarian impulses were on display in her call for tighter regulations on internet speech, although she insisted she values free speech and merely wishes to cleanse disinformation from international discourse. Ardern portrayed the Chinese thing, which New Zealand addressed with some of the heaviest lockdowns to be found outside of China, as a painful lesson that schooled mankind in the importance of, and I quote, collective action. Collective action. It forced us to acknowledge how interconnected and therefore how reliant we are on one another, she said. Quote, we move between one another's countries with increasing ease. Not if you're Russians wanting to travel to the European Union. Anyway, we trade our goods and services, and when one link in our supply chain is impacted, we all are. Ardern explicitly called for the collectivist lessons of the disease to be applied to climate change. The next pandemic will not be prevented by one country's efforts, but by all of ours. Climate action will only ever be as successful as the least committed country as they pull down the ambition of the collective, she said. So she just went off about collective. Everything is collective, according to Arden. Collective. We need to be collective. Collective action, collective punishment, collective everything. What a man! You want to talk about globalist, neoliberal globalist through and through? There you go. Of course, she had to talk about Putin. You have to. That's if you're going to give a speech nowadays, and you're from the globalist, neo-lib, collective West, Putin. It's a must. You have to talk about it. So Arden derided Russian leader Vladimir Putin's claim that he invaded Ukraine to liberate it from fascists. Quote, Putin's suggestion that it could at any point deploy further weapons that it has at their disposal reveals the false narrative that they have based their invasion on. What country who claims to be a liberator threatens to annihilate the very civilians they claim to liberate? This war is based on a lie, she scoffed. Now, yes, she's right about that the war is based on a lie, but it's based on her lies, or better yet, not her lies, her handlers, her puppet masters' lies. And if Arden would take maybe 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of her time, of her busy schedule, because I know she's very busy, but if she would just take 5 minutes to perhaps listen to what Putin said during that 14-minute speech. You don't have to listen to the whole 14 minutes. Just listen to the 2 minutes where he talks about this is not a bluff, that segment. You would understand that Putin said nothing of the such, that he's going to launch nukes against Ukraine. Or against anybody for that matter. Putin was very clear. If the collective West attacks us, we have weapons to attack them. To retaliate, he said. To retaliate and protect our sovereignty. I think any country would take a position like that. Any country. But, any sovereign country. But, Arden, she doesn't bother to listen to what Putin says, or she doesn't bother to research what's really going on, or have any of her team members research what's going on. She just gets the scripts and the talking points, and she delivers them. Anyway, the clown world, courtesy of Klaus Schwab's favorite daughter, Jacinda Ardern. Her and Trudeau are like two peas in a pod. They're two Klaus Schwab peas in a pod. Yeah, Klaus Schwab. Those are his little babies. Justin and Jacinda. J&J. Justin and Jacinda. Right? Klaus Schwab's favorites. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. theduran.locals.com. Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, and Telegram. Look for us there. Check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. I am signing out from Nicosia, Cyprus. Take care.